all you're going to have to do is look at the camera.
Yeah.
Do you... Come in. No, on the other side. Do you see how the interface is? Do you see what I... No, come. Do you see what I... Can you click on my face? Yeah, that's good. Okay.
And then I press this button,
you can leave
and it
now.
shoots a deadly...
You can leave now if you want.
Okay. Do you want a light?
Yeah, sure. Hello. Yeah. I'm in an actual room today. Let's see if this beanbag works. Hold on. Please stay focused. I had to go to extreme lengths to focus, also known as asking my dad. But anyway, hello. I can finally say what's brewing. What's brewing, guys? I'm back with another Wednesday waffle. This is the 13th one. If you don't know, it's basically just where I talk about my life. I know this YouTube channel really isn't much else yet, but you know, if I do end up doing something else, I think it would be good to look back on these videos and see who I was, I guess. So yeah, I'm going to start quite simply with how my week's gone. My week's been pretty good. Ow, my knees hurt, but aside from that, it's been pretty solid. I've learned quite a lot. I'm doing a lot of reading at school, which I'll get onto later, but I'll start with a podcast which I listened to when I was climbing the other day. It was Diary of the CEO, and they had Wim Hof on it. If you don't know who that is, he's the Dutch Iceman, and he he's like 60 something, 64, 65, and he is really good at cold water endurance, but he believes that is a way to almost fix your life problems, and it's kind of difficult to describe, but if you listen to the podcast it would make sense. And he was speaking about a lot of things which on one side I feel like are a bit pretentious, but on the other side I feel like you have to be pretentious to change anything, and so I highly respect this guy. He's a really energetic old guy. He's just really interesting, but he was talking about how humans nowadays are just generally a bit weak. And honestly, I'm not sure what to say about this, because on one hand, I definitely agree. I think people are making up more and more problems for themselves every single day. But on the other hand, they're making up problems which are actual problems, because if nothing else, it's a problem that it's a problem, if you get what I mean. And so, yeah, I'm not sure how to deal with it, but I've heard a couple of my friends have said that humans are also generally weak, and honestly, to an extent, I agree. I wouldn't say physically. I think physically humans are actually stronger than they ever have been, if you look at the extreme feats of endurance. I mean, obviously, on average, probably about the same as we were as cavemen, but we never really knew cavemen. We never really knew how strong they were, so who knows? But I think physically, obviously, it could be improved. We've got obesity and being overweight, but as new research and people are becoming more aware of just the general health epidemic, it's becoming less of a problem. But I feel like the mental and loneliness epidemics are more almost silent and more dangerous in some ways. But it's interesting because what Wim Hof was talking about is how he overcomes these cold water baths with essentially just sheer willpower. He changes, almost alters his body. He changes his blood's pH and his blood stuff by doing specific breathing exercises, which are scientifically proven and do work. So I thought that was really interesting, and how I wondered where I could implement more willpower to get over harder things, and where I should obviously seek more discomfort more, because essentially that entire podcast was him talking about it without knowing, or maybe he didn't know what seeking discomfort was, because he did do some videos with the yes theory. But ultimately it comes down to courage, and the courage to do these things, the courage to go out into the unknown, and the courage to be the best version of yourself, to then help others be good as well, help others live a fulfilled life. And this courage I really seek, if you don't already know. I've spoken ad nauseum about wanting to be Link, but I like these almost values of old knights and stuff. So you've got courage, valour, chivalry. I think they're really cool, personally. I think they're a pretty good way to live your life nowadays. One of my personal mottos is truth and courage, which I gleaned from a book, but I really like it. And yeah, it's just these nights, they were pretty cool. And to live up to them, and at least for me, more Samurais and Link as well, would really be, at least for me, a fulfillment of the person I want to be. Someone who's courageous, who helps others, who is truthful. And that's all emanated fundamentally in seeking discomfort, because at the beginning it's going to be hard to do it, unfortunately. And that's how society's now raised us. And then this gets on to habit building, because you need to be courageous to build habits, to go out of your comfort zone. Do you see what I did there? But this week I realised that building habits takes real time. I was sort of assuming that you'd just start on a habit and like, poof, it's done. But no, I realise now that actually with a lot of habits it's not quite that simple. In fact, with every habit it's not quite that simple. Because you have to have some element of discipline and some element of continuous commitment to something. And you have to fundamentally be able to overcome challenges with that habit, which you can't do if you've done it 2 or 3 times, and you can't just say, oh, it's a habit. But also it takes time to make the correct habits and to find what's worth it, because when I did this alignment workshop a couple of weeks ago, I thought, okay, bang, I know my goals, I know every habit which I'm going to do. However, 2 weeks onwards, I realised that actually the money goal wasn't, either it wasn't specific enough or it didn't align with myself, aligned with me in the way I wanted it to. So now I'm slightly changing that to be 2 musing goals, as opposed to more like making money, more like creating content. But this evolution of habits is not just something which I think should be loved, but I feel like this evolution of habits is also the evolution of the personality and of the self. And so I think it's actually really important to have these habits sort of push you out of what you expect to do with them. This is like my really big realization, is that, you know, I can't just say I've done something, because ultimately I'm so young that, okay, maybe I've tried something, but I haven't done it to the extent which other people have, and I haven't tried everything which I can. So yeah, a bit of a yap, but basically, habits take a while to implement. I realised that this week, and that actually shifting habits is actually quite a good thing. You haven't started on another one because, as I said last time, that's probably a symptom of something greater in that you don't want to do it. Another big realisation was like, do I really need money? And not even a realisation, but a question. Because I think that money would improve my quality of life. I think that money would improve almost anyone's quality of life. But also I feel like the pursuit of money will cause me more problems than achieving the money will, at least at the moment, because that pursuit of money requires building skills which I might not necessarily like. So I don't know, if anybody else wants to talk about it, it would be interesting. Whenever I try to journal about it, I just don't know what to say. And I realise I probably just don't want to enough at the moment, because I've never really experienced what it's like with money. I've only ever experienced life without, or to an extent without, like, not in an absence of money, but in absence of earning money. Yeah. Now here's the big thing, it's that this week at school I was reading this book called Flow, which is really good. I really recommend it. I restarted it because I was reading it over the summer. I think I went into it with a different mindset and realised how much wisdom there is in it. And this is the whole why habits are important, and that's because habits are based on your goals. And your goals are pivotal because the goal sets up a challenge, right? And what a flow state is when the challenge meets your required skills. Hold on, I've got something on my nose. When your challenge meets the required skills. So effectively, if I'm awful at a new sport, let's say I've just started kendo, I'd be really bad at kendo, but it would also be extremely challenging, or it would be challenging enough to the point where it sort of balances out. But if I get too good at kendo and I'm doing something which is really easy, it won't be enjoyable anymore. Or if it gets too hard and I'm too bad at it, I won't enjoy it. And so essentially what this guy says is that this flow state, which I'm sure you guys probably have experienced, is essentially when the challenge meets your skills and you lose yourself in said challenge, right? So, yeah. And that's what a goal is, because you need a goal to then set up the challenge which fits with your skill. And so you can either use a goal to set up your skill to set up the challenge, or a goal to set up a challenge to fit your skill. I hope that makes sense. And then there are some other takeaways from it. Is that what's interesting is that you can find flow in almost every activity. In that, I think that animals are always in a state of flow when they're hungry or when they're needing something. That flow is broken, and so they crave it more. Whereas with us, we live for enjoyment. We're at least at the moment, I think humans are more in a state of permanent dissatisfaction as opposed to satisfaction, which I believe is a flip on the animals, which are in a state of satisfaction and occasional dissatisfaction. I always want to live like those animals, but essentially, you have to. Well, you can enjoy almost every activity so long as the challenge meets the skill required, which is what I don't like about school. But again, ad nauseum, I've talked about that too much. But to find this flow, you have to be, well, you don't have to be, but your personality has to have some traits of something being called autotelic, where you can set up your own challenge in any situation. So for example, with this tea, I could set up a challenge to orient it perfectly, or to sip it in a perfect amount of time, or to not leave it go cold like it has. But all those traits belong to a person who will be called autotelic. And so building that autotelic personality is not something I think I'm going to put more of my efforts into. So that's a thing. And then, arguably the biggest one for me at the moment is the leisure problem, which is that humans, for leisure at the moment, do something which they don't enjoy. It doesn't give them a state of flow. So essentially, for leisure, you might scroll TikTok, right? I don't have TikTok, but I'm just saying as an example or whatever. You might be on a social media, which requires very little skill. If you go back to some of my original ones, I believe this is what I was saying about original videos. I believe this is what I was saying about effort, in that you need effort to make something enjoyable. Because without effort, without this skill, without a challenge, you can't enjoy it. You can't possibly get into a flow state. And so this leisure paradox has reminded me that when I want to relax, I shouldn't necessarily, well, not I shouldn't, but I won't necessarily choose to go to videos. Or it would be better if I didn't choose to go to videos, simply because I won't enjoy that, and if I'm relaxing, I might as well enjoy myself, right? There's a quote about that later. But the last thing which I learned from flow is that being a professional amateur would be a really cool thing, and it's almost something which I really want to do. An amateur, although it has somewhat negative connotations now, basically just means, in Latin originally, it meant someone who loves something. I could be an amateur at dancing. And that just means I really love dancing, but I'm not that good at it, I just do it because I enjoy it. And so I'd like to be more of an amateur in more areas, and also ideally be a professional in some other areas as well. So like photography or videography, I'd love to be professional, and then like swimming, I'd like to be an amateur. Yep, that's what it says. Basis of skill learning, you have to... Flow is the basis of skill learning, being a professional amateur. I think that's basically everything. The last thing I have to say is that on Friday I'm going to the Natural History Museum to see the Wildlife Photographer of the Year, and I'm really hyped. I'm very glad I'm doing it. I might make a little vlog out of it. But I just wanted to say that because I really want to do something to do with photography. I'm very glad. I love the Natural History Museum in London. It's one of the... It used to have a dinosaur and now it's a whale, but now with the wildlife photographer, it's gonna be so cool. I can't wait for it. The photos which they've previewed have actually looked so good. So I can't wait to do that on Friday. As of now, this is the end of the video. Might be a shorter one, might be a bit weird, I don't know. I'm glad I recorded it. I liked recording it. It was worth it. And so I'll start with my finishing stuff, which is a quote, a haiku, and something to think about. The quote is from Flow. It's about this leisure paradox, and it's that one of the most basic delusions of our time is that home life takes care of itself, naturally, and that the best strategy for dealing with it is to relax and let it take its course. So many people who I talk to, or not so many, but several people who I talk to, I say, they're like, while their days away on some social media, or doing something which they don't necessarily want, and I ask them, oh, why did you do that? And they said, oh, it relaxed me. This quote summarises this leisure paradox. You don't enjoy it if you're conventionally relaxing, if you're sitting in front of the TV. Even though I might unwind you, it's probably not that good for you. The haiku, grass covers all plains. It took time building its rain, emerald carpet. And that's, I think it's about patience, letting habits, at least for me, letting habits run their course. Waiting for them, changing them if they need to, and eventually they'll cover all planes. The last thing to ponder for me is going right back to the start with courage. Where can I be courageous today? Even if it's in the most basic form of seeking discomfort, even if it's in the most basic, give a stranger a high five. It sounds like nothing, but you'll be really scared to do it if you're not a really good seeker. So yeah, hope you guys have a good day. Take it easy. Yeah. Truth and courage, guys. Keep the faith.